Hi, friends. So today maybe we could talk a little bit about what do you want to accomplish with your life? Young or old, what do you want to accomplish with your life? It was a question I had a few years ago had asked a group of college students. What do you want to accomplish with your life? And I got varying responses from them. I didn't ask a question beyond that. So, some said, well, I want to be happy, or I want to be successful. I want to be surrounded by family and friends, those who love and support me. I want a good job. I want a home. Others said things like, I just don't want to be sad. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be in a broken home. Many said, I want to be a good person and I want to make an impact upon this world. Great. Like all of those are really good goals. But then I asked, so what's your highest goal? Well, what do you mean? So what goal could you not live without in this world and in the next? What's your highest goal? And that immediately took them to something different. I started to hear from them, well, my highest goal is to be with God. My highest goal is to get into heaven. And so I asked, okay, all right, you have all these goals, and what you're saying to me is that your highest goal is actually to get into heaven. Would that mean that these other goals are as good as they are? They're not the highest goal? That's correct. They're lesser goals. That's correct. They're important goals, right? Yes. But they're not the first and the foremost and the highest and the most important. Correct. Okay. Want to know how to live the Christian life? Want to accomplish something with your life? Then always aim for the highest. Always target the highest goal in your life. Always shoot for the highest. And not just in theory, not just in thought, not just in belief, not just in prayer, not just in hope, but build a lifestyle that will get you to that highest goal. So here's an image I want to leave with you that I think can flesh this out. Think of a waterfall. A waterfall, we know in the physical world and according to physical laws, like the law of gravity, a waterfall flows down. And as it flows down, it touches everything and wets everything that it touches. So not just the rocks below, but then it goes out into a river and maybe further down the mountain, and then it goes into a valley or a plain, and the water brings life to everything, to the soil, to the grass, to the plants, to the trees, to the crop, to the flowers. It waters everything. But here's the thing about a waterfall that we all know. It only flows down. It doesn't flow up. It's impossible to flow up. Okay? It's the same in the spiritual life. And the spiritual life has similar laws. A waterfall in the spiritual life only flows down. It doesn't flow up. And so what we have to do is shoot for the highest point, the top of the waterfall. We have to shoot for the highest goal. And then allow that goal, that being with God, and not just in heaven one day, but we have to live. We know now is the time that we choose. Every day is the time that we choose that goal. And every day is the time that we work towards that goal and target that goal and give all of our effort and our energy and our time to that goal. While, yes, attending to everything else, but here's how we attend to those other important goals. We shoot for that one, and like a waterfall, we allow that relationship with God, because that's how we get into heaven. We don't get ourselves into heaven. Christ gets us into heaven. And the only way that Christ gets us into heaven is that we enter into a relationship with Him. And it's a life-giving relationship. It's an exchange. He gives his life to us, and we give our life to him. That's how we get into heaven. And we know this. So when we target that, then that relationship and everything that is a part of that relationship, and again, not just at the end of life, but here and now and every day, flows down and touches and waters every other goal in our life. And so, for instance, if one of our life goals is to find the right spouse, because we're Christian and we want to find a spouse that can help us get to heaven. And then take that further, find a spouse that then can help us raise our children so we can raise our children up to God so that they can one day be with God and we can all be together in heaven as a family. Our nuclear family and the universal family in God, right? So maybe that's one of our goals, is to find that right husband or that right wife, that right spouse, and then build that family the way that we want. Well, when we're shooting for the highest goal, then like a waterfall, it will water that. And here's what happens over the course of our lives. Whether we're young and looking for this, or whether we're old and need to be able to address this and to bring about changes in our lives, because that goal has gotten away from us. No matter our age or our situation, when we live for the highest goal, then what happens is that God will help us find the right spouse. And how does he do that? Because when we live for God and he's our first and our foremost, he's what's most important, and we work on that goal and accomplishing that goal, then he changes us. And we start to become the person that God wants to make us into in order to find the person that's actually looking for us. We spend so much of our time, I see this in a lot of couples, unfortunately, looking for a spouse out there, but looking for a spouse without God and without the lifestyle that's going to attract the type of spouse that they're actually looking for, but without God. And when we have God and he's our primary goal in our lives, and his grace and his blessing and his life is just flowing over top of us, then it will shape and form us, and it'll create in us the person and the lifestyle that God is doing in the same exact person somewhere else out in the world. And then when we encounter that person won't walk by us, because we're not the type of person that person is looking for, but that person is the person that we're looking for. They're just going to walk by us. But if we're living the type of life in deep communion with God, and we're living a lifestyle of God, then when that person comes, they're going to see us and they're going to say, this is the person I prayed for, this is the person I've lived for, and this is the person I've been looking for. And then that's going to be a beautiful marriage through the ups and the downs, and through the good and through the bad, because we all have those in marriages. And then that spouse is going to be the type of spouse that when we start having children and God blesses us with children, then they're going to be right there alongside of us, raising our children up to God and preparing them for a life of heaven. And then preparing them to make sure that their highest goal in life is not success or happiness or to escape sadness or to get a good job, or to have a nice home and to have things and money for vacations. That's not what we'll instill in them. We'll instill in them God first and God foremost, and God as the highest goal in our lives. And then the very things we want for our children, happiness, which every parent wants for their child, they'll find. Because they'll find it in God. God will just be coming over every aspect of their life like a waterfall, and including their search for a spouse and then their creation of a family. A waterfall falls down according to gravity. And all these goals that are important to us in life and are good goals, if we have God as the first, then God will come over and touch and wash and bring to life and the fullness of life, every other single goal, including a job and having success and so on, and getting us through the failures and the losses of the jobs and refocusing on Him. He'll use all of that. But here's the thing about the spiritual life. That's the same thing about the physical world and the law of gravity. The waterfall doesn't flow up. And so, if we make happiness or pleasure our goal in life, if what we want to accomplish is a good job and building a family and or just being a good person and making an impact on our world, first of all, if we make those our goals, we'll never fully realize those goals without God and His blessings and His graces and the abundance of life that He can give to us here and now and across our lives. But also, those goals, like a waterfall doesn't flow up, won't get us into heaven. Being a good person will not get us into heaven. And we see this over and over again as Christians, and yet, as Christians living in the secular society, we have been duped into believing that being a good person or making an impact upon the lives of other people in a positive way is enough to get us into heaven. I mean, just take one gospel passage, like when Jesus, these people come to Jesus and they want to get into the house. He's the master of the house, but He's closed the doors. And they say, Lord, Lord, let us in. And He says, I don't know you. And they're like, how can you not know us? We were out preaching in your name. We were out healing in your name. We were out casting demons in your name. We were doing X, Y, and Z in your name. We were doing good works in your name. Now let us in. And He says, I'm not letting you in because I don't know you. Don't you get it? You didn't take time to get to know me. And you never allowed me to get to know you. And that's only happens, just like in a human relationship, it's the same in the human-divine relationship. We have to get to know Him. And that only happens in relationship. Not just in religion and ritual and sacrament, as important as all those are and how all those contribute to keeping us on a road and helping us have the encounter. But those good works that we do in His name because we're a Christian, or that impact that we want to have, that's like thinking a waterfall is going to flow up and thinking that those things are going to get us into heaven. Lord, Lord, open the door for us. I don't know you. In all of His life, all of our lives, He will send us countless opportunities to come into a relationship with Him, to show us that we're important to Him. It's so important that He'll die upon the cross for us. Only so that He becomes what's most important to us. And then here's the thing that's important for us to point out. Just like all those other goals, those lesser goals, those important and good goals, take a lot of work. So does a relationship with God. So doing the work is inescapable. If our highest goal, or the goal that we actually spend most of our work and time on, is our jobs and succession job and accumulation of a house and all kinds of things, then guess what? That takes a lot of work, a lot of study, a lot of on-job training, a lot of sacrifices that we have to make. And the same goes with if our family is our most important thing in this life. How much work does it take to be in a good marriage? How much work does it take to be in a strong family? You know it. It takes an extraordinary amount of work. So the work is inescapable. But here's the thing about us Christians. We do all the work on the lesser goals and do hardly any work on the highest goal. If you want to accomplish the greatest thing in your life, and the greatest thing is first for you to get into heaven, and second, the greatest privilege, the greatest work is for you to help get other people into heaven, like the people you love, let alone so many other people that God wants to bring into your life, but won't because you're not ready to help them get to heaven, right? It takes work. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what do we want to work on? These other goals that are good, but are lesser, but are like a waterfall that doesn't flow up and won't get us into heaven, and we spend all of our lives on them, thinking that somehow doing them or doing them well or being good is going to get us in heaven, when the gospel is so clear that that's not what's going to get us into heaven. Or do we want to make God our highest goal and then let him water every other goal that we have and make them beautiful and good and true and full and life-giving, and to give us the jobs and the families and the relationships and the success and everything else that we want as we navigate life and go through the ups and the downs and the lights and the darkness? Do we want to do this with God or without God? And not just with God or without God now, but with God or without God for all of eternity. What do you want to accomplish with your life? What is your highest goal? And then once you know what your highest goal is, live for it. Build your lifestyle upon it. And don't let any other goal get higher than that. And don't live for lesser goals. Until next time, friends.